biggest metal bands of all time, Slayer, is an established band in our world. Their legacy spans almost 4 decades, and they have countless albums that are absolute gems in the treasure chest of metal. However, I want to go back in time, back to a time where the rise of Slayer had only just begun. Many people often forget that before their album Rain and Blood, the album that took Slayer on the rocket ship to thrash metal glory, they had 2 albums that came out before that, entitled Show No Mercy and Hell Awaits. I've discussed Show No Mercy, the very first emergence of Slayer, but today I want to talk about Hell Awaits, an often forgotten record mainly due to fans just starting to discover Slayer when this album had come out. Hell Awaits came out in 1985, I believe. When we look at metal in 1985, thrash metal was emerging. Metallica had already done a couple records. Megadeth was just getting started. There were a few other bands around the time like Exodus, Creator, and Testament, so thrash metal was rumbling and beginning to make its mark. Classic metal was at an all-time high. Bands like Motorhead, Iron Maiden, Dio, Judas Priest, and Black Sabbath had already made their marks in the 70s and early 80s. So by the mid-80s, a lot of those bands were at their peak. Now, black metal hadn't really emerged from the shadows just yet. However, the seeds were indeed being planted in the mid to late 80s by bands like Venom and Possessed. Power metal was just starting to come around. Death metal hardly existed yet, although there were bands that planted seeds for what the future of death metal would become. And this album, Hell Awaits, is honestly one of those albums. When it comes to sound quality and technicality, the album was not Slayer's best. However, the album had insanely high levels of intensity and aggression that takes your focus away from things like technicality and all of that, and your focus is more towards the energy and the feeling that the album gives you. Songs such as the album-titled song Hell Awaits, the demonic growls throughout the song display very early shades of death metal. This album as a whole is incredibly dark, somewhat sludgy, and you feel this overall diabolical vibe in Tom Araya's vocals. At times I do feel like he's trying to fit too many words into parts of the songs, but that comes with that extreme intensity that I was talking about earlier. Songs like Necrophiliac, obviously given the title of the song, dive far into more graphic topics, but things such as death, sex, killing, violence, and things of that nature are nothing new in the more aggressive subgenres of metal, much like that content exists in aggressive genres of movies like horror and slasher films. I personally love the vibe of the album. I think the overall sick, twisted, diabolical, demonic, evil, intense, energetic, aggressive, early thrash feel of the album is incredibly fascinating. One of my favorite songs I'd recommend to you guys for this album would have to be Kill Again. Tom Araya talks about this devious serial killer who'll just keep killing and killing with no remorse. Another one of my favorite songs on this record has got to be Crypts of Eternity. This song taps more into the darker side of life that I love. Things like Satan, demons, and the occult, that kind of thing. I would say that this album, similar to Show No Mercy, focuses more on instrumentation than vocals, but even with that, throughout the entire album you feel immersed in this dark world. You almost feel like you're living in the pits of hell with demons ready to eat your soul alive. I love it. I fucking love it. God, I love Slayer. This truly is an underrated album in Slayer's catalog. This album is truly one of the thrash albums that planted the seeds for what would become death metal. Till this day, it is not very often you hear death-esque low growls on Slayer songs. All in all, this album is very exciting. I love it. While the quality and technicality aren't the strongest, it's hard to even notice from the dark aura that you are immersed in when listening to it. What's even more exciting about this album is that this was only the beginning for what Slayer would eventually become. I hope my fellow metal brothers and sisters take the time to listen to this album if you haven't heard it. Tell me what you think about it in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.